Okay, that's me, yeah. I'm going to talk about the Meeting Center Support Program, helping people to live well with dementia. And this is a project which has as a follow-up the Meeting Them project, but I will first go into the Meeting Center Support Program itself. So this is my presentation, I will recognize it. Okay, I will go into the background, the vision, the elements of the Meeting Center Support Program. We normally talk about MCSP, the adaptation coping model, so that's the theoretical model on which the program is based, the method in practice, and I will talk about the research we did with this program. First of all, something about the background. When we started this program, it was about 1989. There were a lot of developments in the Netherlands in the nursing homes. So there were all kinds of psychosocial interventions. There was the beginning of emotion-oriented care. There was a lot of education for personnel, and there were done already effect studies in all kind of psychosocial interventions in the nursing homes. But in the home care, there were a lot of bottlenecks. There was a lot of fragmentation of care. There was limited carer support. Carer said there was too little information, too little emotional support, too little practical support, social isolation, because they had a lot of their time spent in the care for the person with dementia, so they were not able to, let's say, maintain their own social relationships. And what we know from the literature was that carers had more frequently health problems than, let's say, people from their own age who were not a carer. So, we thought we have to do something about that. And our vision was to provide integrated and timely support to improve the cooperation between care and welfare, because it were very two separated type of activities, care and welfare. And we wanted that people could go to an easy access location, especially also the carers, because to give more timely support, so that they wouldn't go on till there was a crisis and then needed help, but just to, in the beginning already, to ask information and support, socially and emotional support. And we thought it was important to have a small team of professionals to really get a trusting relationship with people, because in most of the home care services there were all kind of different people coming to the homes of people with dementia and carers, so there was more like an anonymous relationship. And we really wanted to have a more trustful relationship, so that people could also talk with you about all kinds of problems and really experience emotional support. This vision, based on all the interviews and discussions we had with professionals, people with dementia, carers, finally resulted in a comprehensive support program, in which we thought should be information, emotional support, the possibility to extend the social network for carers, but also for people with dementia, practical support and case management. And this led to this broad Meeting Center Support Program. It's not that we immediately thought, well, we have to do this in a community center. I tried to link it to nursing homes, to daycares, but they were not interested in carer support. I tried to go to care homes. They said where they had, let's say, day treatment or day cares, and they said, no, we don't want the people with dementia to come in, because otherwise the other people from the neighborhood won't come anymore. And then finally we ended in the community centers, and they said, well, you can come in because everybody is welcome here. So it was a nice coincidence that we finally started in those community centers, and very soon already it showed many opportunities, because in the meeting centers you're in normal society and a lot of things happen and in those community centers. So we didn't have to invent it superficially, artificially, I don't know how the word is, artificially maybe, as you do in a nursing home where everything is gone from normal society. So we thought it's a very nice place to start a meeting center where people can get in contact with other people from the neighborhood, with children, for elderly people. And without having the real focus to go to the community centers, it ended up in a very nice place to integrate such a support program for people with dementia and the carers. And you can see here the different parts of the meeting center support program. For the person with dementia, there is a social club. We especially mention it a club because it's not, let's say, a treatment area and not a treatment location. People come there to their club and can do their all kind of activities in which they are, let's say, guided or facilitated by the professionals who are working there. We have a lot of movement because I'm a movement scientist, and I did research in many nursing homes in which I found out that the psychomotor therapy had a real nice effect on behavior and mood of people with dementia. So I included that in the program of the meeting centers. There are also creative and recreational activities. Sometimes they're a bit therapy-like, but mostly it are just activities for well-being and emotion-oriented care methods. And for the carers, there are informative meetings, lectures on all kind of subjects, themes which are important to know if you have a relative with dementia. It can be about the diagnosis, it can be about changing in behavior, it can be about ethical aspects, juridical aspects, or support services in the neighborhood, in the region. There are support groups, mostly meant for emotional support, peer groups with other peer carers, and there is care coordination provided by the coordinator of the center. And for both there is a consulting hour once a week. Some centers have a fixed consulting hour, other centers have an ongoing, continuous consulting hour that people can call by telephone or can come to the center and ask advice. There are monthly meetings, which are mostly 2 monthly meetings, in which people with dementia and carers come together with the professionals, and they talk about the program and what they like, what they don't like, what they want to change, to make them all responsible for the whole program. It's not like professionals are offering a program to people with dementia and carers. No, the idea is that you together are responsible and try to make the best out of it. And there are social activities. People celebrate their birthday, or they go out together with the carers and people with dementia, or separately, depends on the activity. So it's quite a large program. And it has several goals for the person with dementia to assist and support in adaptation and coping with dementia. Dawn tells me every time that no one understands what it means, adaptation to and coping with dementia, but it's about adjusting to the changes you overcome, you could say, when you get dementia and when you are a relative of a person with dementia. To maintain and improve quality of life, to provide emotional support, and also to increase your social network. For the person with dementia, I'm still talking about. And for the carers, also to provide emotional support, increase the social network, to inform the carer on dementia and coping strategies, and to give carers some time off, respite. So, and this is then this interesting adaptation coping model, in which in the center you see adaptive tasks. So we will go through it calmly so that you can understand it. In the center are the adaptive tasks, and the model really wants to help you to understand how people adapt to and cope with the consequences of dementia, or how they deal with dementia, you can say. So the adaptive tasks are written here. You can see it. First of all, people have to deal with disabilities, and this can be new for them. So maybe they have never had any disabilities, and when they get memory problems or when they get disoriented, it can be quite a shock that you don't find your home anymore when you went out for shopping. Developing an adequate care relationship with professional carers. All kind of people want to help you, but maybe it's quite difficult to accept this help. So to get an adequate relationship is really an adaptive task, you could say. Then the emotional adaptation. Preserve an emotional balance. It can have emotional, effects when you are not very certain anymore about your own abilities. When you don't recognize friends, for instance, or when you don't remember exactly the conversation you were in. It can also have a negative effect on your self-image. So another adaptive task is maintaining a positive self-image. And to prepare for an uncertain future, how will this end? Do I have to go to a nursing home? Does my partner, my wife, will she succeed in keeping me at home? Or will there be a moment that she will say, it's impossible for me anymore? So this uncertain future is difficult for the person with dementia. Some people find it difficult, others find it less difficult. And that's the same with all the adaptive tasks. It's not so that every person finds this very difficult. It depends on the person. It's an individual process. Then the social adaptation, stay in contact with family and friends, and dealing with a daycare or an institutional environment. So these tasks, and that is what I wrote my thesis about in the beginning of the 90s, or at the end of the 80s already, are tasks which are described also for chronic diseases. And what I did is validate them for people with dementia. So it's not, the task is not something I invented. They were invented by Moos and Sue, you see it here at the bottom, in 1977 already, 1977. It's quite a long time ago. But I immediately thought, well, this is very interesting, because then we have a structured think about what do people experience? Do they experience problems, or are there no problems, let's say, on different adaptive areas? And where can we support them, really? So it's a very concrete model. What we know from interviews with people with dementia is that they cope in very different ways with all kinds of situations, all kinds of changes they experience. Some people deny, others minimize the problems, people sometimes emphasize their competence, people try to stay involved. And so there are a lot of different strategies, also using humor. But what we know also is that using all those coping strategies all the time, the whole day, is very, let's say, intellectually and emotionally exhausting. People put a lot of energy in it to stay in balance. And it's not strange that sometimes, I call it disruptions of mood and behavior. I don't know how we should call it exactly, but it's, let's say, an imbalance which is caused by a combination of biological, psychological and social factors. And what we see is that people are anxious or depressed or agitated, rebellious, suspicious, restless, they are apathetic, or even have delusions. And we used to say about 20, 30 years ago, this is all caused by the brain degeneration. These are typically symptoms of dementia. But that's not true. Already for 10, 15 years, we say no, people are vulnerable, that's true. So there are biological factors which can, let's say, evoke, I don't know if that's the right word, evoke such symptoms. But at the same time, there are also psychological and social factors which have a lot of influence on the behavior and mood of people with dementia. So, what we talk about now is, we've seen the adaptive task in the middle, and we know that there's an individual difference. That's what we call the cognitive appraisal. It's very personal. So, how I experience a situation can be totally different from what another person experiences. And this experience is influenced by personal factors, so the yellow ones on the left, personal factors, disease-related factors. So what are my disabilities? Do I have problems recognizing people, or do I have problems orienting myself, or do I have problems, let's say, with practical handling? That really influences how I appraise the situation. And also the social and material factors. When I live on the 3rd floor and there are no children to help me, it's quite different from when I live ground floor and I have a whole family to help me each day. So these factors are very important to understand if it's difficult for a person, a specific adaptive task or not. Here you can see a summary of these personal experiences. Personal factors, you can think of the personality, the life history, coping with stress. So what are your experiences throughout your life? Disease-related factors, the severity of disabilities and physical conditions, also comorbidity, so other diseases you have, arthritis, or I don't know, one organ what's not functioning well. Social and material factors, social network, and the material circumstances. Do you have the money to pay for support, for instance? So when people come into the center, the first thing we do, or I say we because I identify myself with the meeting centers, but I don't work in a meeting center. What people do, the personnel, is to think about what goes well on these adaptation areas, and are there any difficulties with adaptation? And then they think in the structure of those different adaptation areas, adaptive tasks. And based on that, they make a psychosocial diagnosis. So it's, I use the word diagnosis because all those doctors use diagnosis, and we think this is much important, equally important as a medical diagnosis. So we think we should put energy in also psychosocial diagnosis to understand the behavior of people with dementia. Based on that, care strategies for the person with dementia are set up. Can be reactivation, resocialization, improving emotional functioning. I will go into that a bit later. And also for the carer, support strategies are set up. It could be a focus on information, practical support, emotional support, or increasing the social network, or a combination of both. So what about this psychosocial diagnosis? What I mean is that you think about all these adaptive tasks in, like in a question. So how does a person deal with disabilities? Does he develop an adequate care relationship with carers? Is he emotionally in balance? Does he have a positive self-image? How does he deal with a certain uncertain future? Does he keep in contact with family and friends? and how does he deal with the daycare environment? So the answer of these questions will give you an indication of what goes well and where are the problems. And then you can think, okay, so but how are these problems, what causes these problems? So then you can think about the process resulting in those problems. And that's the adaptation coping process. So to go into it a bit more in detail, to give you some examples, dealing with disabilities, you can read on the right, one person says, I'm trying to control it. I try to write everything down in my diary and look at it if I remember to look at it. You see here, Gillies 2000. What we did is look up in the literature all kind of quotes people with dementia made to really see what are the problems of people with dementia, and we looked if that could be categorized within these adaptive tasks. So that's what you see now. So develop an adequate care relationship with professional carers. One person says making up stories to fill in the gaps, fighting the memory loss and trying not to let it get the better of me. So that's really what we mean with dealing with disabilities. For an adequate care relationship, a person says, if I have a problem or anything like that, I know I can turn to my carer and get assistance. And another person said, so you know how these daughters are. Shouldn't do this, mum, shouldn't do that, mum, but I don't take no notice. So this is, let's say, an explanation of what I mean with those adaptive tasks. Another view on the practical and cognitive adaptation. It's hard because I've always liked to do things like that, and now I cannot do it anymore. I've got into the habit of making a joke of it. Remember, this coping strategy is using humor. Otherwise, it will take over my life. Regarding emotional adaptation, there's another one, preserving a positive self-image. My status has gone. You're no longer necessary. Deal with an uncertain future. I think about dying a lot. There has to be a line drawn somewhere when it is time to go, when life is not quality anymore. So this is really a person who is thinking about his future, and yeah. Oh. Then about developing, maintaining a social contacts. A person says, I withdraw because I don't feel involved in what they are talking about. Another person says, I haven't told anyone. I think they will treat me differently. So these are exactly the things we have to be aware of that people can have problems with. Dealing with the new environment. When I first started coming to daycare service, I was frightened to death. I thought they were going to keep me here. Do you know what I mean? She was afraid to go to the nursing home, not to go back home anymore. When you've been here, the daycare, and you go home, you feel good, don't you? So that's another experience for people who like it in the daycare. So these are some of the examples, what people say and how we translate that to, okay, they experience an adaptive task and they have to cope with that. So based on the adaptive task, which people goes well, which they have problems with, we make a psychosocial diagnosis, and based on that we are looking for a support or care strategy which can help people to stay in balance on those with those adaptive tasks, to fulfill those adaptive tasks. And regarding the cognitive adaptation, which doesn't mean cognitive stimulation. No, it means that you lower a bit your expectations of yourself maybe. You don't put too high standards, because then you're also always failing. If you have a bit lower expectation, so what you can do, your performance, you will be more easily satisfied about yourself. So that's about also cognitive adaptation. And we try to reactivate people, because if people are afraid to do something because they think, well, I cannot do it anymore, if you stimulate them and they do it, they're very proud and happy they did it. So reactivation is important for helping people to deal with their disabilities, but also to develop an adequate care relationship. You don't want people, caregivers, professional caregivers, to take over all the time. You want people to say, people with dementia, to say, I can do that myself. Thank you very much. And if you need help, that you can say, can you help me? So you want to have a balance between that being helped or being autonomous or self-supporting. There has to be a balance. Then regarding the emotional adaptation, you like to improve the effective functioning of people. If they are depressed, if they are anxious, if they have a negative self-image, if they are very insecure about the future, you want to support them to stay in balance on these aspects. And we will see some of the examples which you can do to reach this goal. Then the social adaptation has a care strategy, resocialization, and with the goal to maintain social relationships and to help people cope with the environment, the new environment where they're in, where they can participate in all kinds of activities. But maybe people don't have a lot of experience to be in a group and to participate in group activities. So that's also an adaptation aspect. Here you see some examples of reactivation, for instance. On the right here you see that it is focused on memory, perception, language, action. So all kind of cognitive abilities, but not to train them in these abilities, but to let people experience that they can still function on these aspects. For resocialization, all kind of activities which stimulate the communication, collaboration between people with dementia, and to get new contacts. And then improving the emotional functioning. It's really about improving the mood of people with dementia and their self-image. It's not only that people have to laugh all the time, but they can also express their anger, and they can also say if they are anxious about things and talk about that. Well, there are a lot of different psychosocial treatment methods, and most of all, I think that most of you have heard about them. I've listed a lot of them, but there are even more developed in the last 20 years. And I will go into only let's say the working model, how it works, how you apply those psychosocial interventions within the meeting centers. First of all, based on the analysis of the adaptation process, or how people are in balance or not, you make a psychosocial diagnosis, and based on that you have your care strategy I've just talked about, and based on that you think about an activity plan. And then you evaluate that after, let's say, a month or 2 months, to see if people are more in balance and if they're more happy. So if their quality of life improved. And the type of activities you choose depend fully on, let's say, the abilities of a person, the preferences. So one person can like music, another person likes movement, a third person likes to paint, or so it depends on the person. But it also depends on the specific disease-related disabilities of a person, what he can do or what he cannot do. Yeah, some benefits to tell about of the small-scale meeting center support program. It's combined and intensive support, so combined for the people with dementia and the carers. It is in easy access community centers, but it are all different centers in the Netherlands. Sometimes it's near a church, sometimes it's in a community center, sometimes it is, let's say, on the ground floor of a nursing home or a care home. Sometimes it's in a senior flat, so all kind of different locations. But central, or let's say a key element, is that it is socially integrated. So it has to have the possibility to meet other persons from the community. There's a small permanent professional staff, and it improves, or it promotes early participation, a trusting relationship. It's easier to accept help and to share care with others. I'd like to show you a small movie just to give you an impression. It's quite an old movie. We made it in 1997 when we started these meeting centers. In the beginning of the 90s, we first made some development of the meeting centers. Then we did effect research, and then we wanted to disseminate these centers. So we made a movie, and it gives a nice impression, I think. I hope I can do like this, and then I hope it works. Yeah.
The Amsterdam Meeting Centres project works according to what is known as the adaptation coping model. The focus lies on adjusting to the consequences of dementia, with four main aims: transfer of knowledge, practical help, emotional support, and social support. The Amsterdam Meeting Centres project developed an integrated program of individual and group-oriented activities. Each carer and dementia sufferer was assessed with regard to the following problem areas: dealing with a disability resulting from dementia, adjustment on the self-image, preservation of an emotional balance, living with an uncertain future, maintaining social relations, developing a workable relationship with professional carers, and undergoing necessary treatment, such as therapeutic activities and taking medicine. This problem analysis is used to make a psychosocial diagnosis and individual support plan for both carer and dementia sufferer. This plan is then implemented using a varied support program which caters for each individual's specific needs.
Zonder pattenmensen, langzaam zweven, langzaam zweven, langzaam zweven in Veronia, in Veronia, in Veronia. Ja, dat staat voor je neus.
On 3 fixed days a week, social clubs for dementia sufferers are held in the community centres. The social aspect and the contact with others in the community centre are important. The social club offers modified creative and recreational activities, painting and drawing, listening to music, or reading the newspaper with an aid worker.
Ja, Laura doen. En nog wel van Willem II.
Dat is wel goed.
Ja, het is verschrikkelijk.
Kijk eens.
Kunnen we dat werk?
Wat doet hij?
De benen zijn te diep.
Glansbroeken met het J erop.
De benen zijn te diep.
En WJ. Nou, dat wil wel.
We hebben ook gemerkt dat als ik de krant voorlees, selectie natuurlijk daaruit, dat het dan beter overkomt. Dat luisteren vaak makkelijker is dan lezen. Wat je daarmee ook krijgt, is dat, merk je wel, dat het heel veel associaties oproept bij mensen. Mensen beginnen meteen te praten en over hetgeen wat ik voorgelezen heb, maar ook over alles wat ze zich daarbij bedenken. En dat is heel vreemd. Maar het houdt de krijgen zelf actief. Daar komt het op neer.
Wat je eigenlijk hebt in andere opvang voor ouderen, zoals op een dagbehandeling of op een dagopvang aan een verzorgingshuis, is dat het fijn geïsoleerd is. Dagbehandeling is ook de deur gesloten. En ja, hier is dat allemaal open. En wat er dus gebeurt is dat ten eerste wat heel belangrijk is dat de mensen onderling heel veel contact hebben, maar ook een vrijheid hebben hier. Je hebt verschillende ruimtes, het is een grote zaal. Nou, daarnaast is dat mensen samen heel goed op kunnen schieten. Daar besteden de activiteiten, begeleidster Marcel en ik heel veel aandacht aan. Is het ook zo dat er contacten ontstaan met de mensen in het buurthuis.
Ja, dankjewel. Ja.
De gaatjes zijn te klein.
Dat wil je van starten. Zo laat mogelijk, dus dat hij overlaat aan de weg, dat is mooi. En wat nog meer? En de weekenddienst, dat komt ook weer. Nou, dat zou ik zien willen. Ik zie haar vanmiddag, dat is wel heel leuk, dan kan ik dat meteen met haar bespreken.
So just an impression. What we did was we developed, can I go straight? Yeah. 2 meeting centers in 93, 94. And after that, this development was in discussion also with people with dementia and the carers. And after that, when we had a program, we did an effect study in the period 94 to 96. And after that, in 2000, when we, in the effect study, it showed that there were nice effects. I will show you that later. But it did not, let's say, disseminate into the country. So we thought we have to do an implementation study after that. And in 2000, we started this study in 11 meeting centers in different parts of the country. The results of the effect study in 94, but also we repeated it in 2000, was that people with dementia had less behavior and mood problems, especially less inactivity we saw, and also less unsocial behavior. We saw less depressed behavior, and people had a higher self-esteem. And what we also saw was delay of nursing home admission. After 7 months, only 4% of the people with dementia in the meeting centers were admitted to a nursing home, while in the daycare, the regular daycare in the nursing homes, already 30% was admitted to a nursing home. So that were people in the same phase of dementia. So we thought that was very interesting. And what we also saw that the carers felt more competent to give the care at home. So that could be one of the reasons that they could stay home longer. And they also felt less burdened. And what we also saw that there were less psychosomatic complaints in carers who felt lonely at the start of the program, start of participation in the program of the meeting centers. People were also very satisfied about the program. yeah, what can I say about that? We had a very long survey in which we asked about 50 questions to people with dementia. So it was not only the question, are you satisfied or not? But we saw overall high percentages of satisfaction, and about 67% experienced much support in contact with other carers. That's what the carers said. Here you see some of the activities delivered in the meeting centers and how people appreciate those activities. Movement is very popular, you can see, but also memory games, reading the newspaper, and at the bottom you see shopping. That's strange. Maybe there's a difference between men and women. Okay, then about the dissemination of the meeting centers. To disseminate the meeting centers, we made a practical guide, and this was really helpful to disseminate it in the Netherlands. In this guide, we've written down the preparation activities before setting up the meeting center, starting the program, and continue it after, let's say, 1 year, 1 or 2 years. So how to do that? And that really caused a lot of dissemination. So there are now about 125 centers. I didn't put all the dots in the country, but most of the centers are in the west of the country and in the middle. Almost no centers yet in the northern part or the southern part in Limburg. So this is what I mean, the southern part, because here are already quite a lot of meeting centers. And this is also because these are more rural areas. And so we have to see how we are going to stimulate that also, maybe in a different form. And we also try to disseminate this idea to Europe. And we started with this Meeting Them project, but yesterday Dawn and I were talking about what to do after meeting them already. So there are now 3 countries involved in this Meeting Them project. It's the UK, Poland and Italy, and the Netherlands. Here you can see it. And people who are interested in this can go to meetingthem.eu to see all the developments in this project. But you can also write for the newsletter, and then you can get it by email. It's a digital newsletter on the website. And in the UK, the project is led by the University of Worcester with the project leader Don Broeke. Here you see the theme, and also some people from the Alzheimer organization I see, and from the meeting center itself. And what they did is first, the project is 3 years, and in the first 18 months, or 16 months, they prepared with an initiative group of care and welfare organizations in several steps the meeting center's implementation plan. So step 1 was about setting a time plan and making working groups, smaller working groups, to work on the target group, elaboration of the support program, the location requirements, personnel, the financing, a collaboration protocol, and how to do public relations. And this ended in an implementation plan, and after that the opening of the center. So at the moment there are already several centers in Milan. There is a center in Wrocław in Poland, and there is a center in Droes Spa, and there will be another one in Leicester in, I think, 1 February it will open. And what we hope is that these example meeting centers in these different countries will spread to other regions in those countries, and after that also to other countries in Europe. That's also why we have chosen countries which are quite different. So let's say the UK is very different from Poland, but also from the more southern countries. Italy is also very different from the more northern cultures. And the phase 2 of the project, after opening now of the centers, will be to see if the results of the meeting centers in those countries are almost the same or comparative to the, let's say, the effects we found in the Netherlands. And we are also very interested in to know how can you disseminate it in these countries. Because that's almost always the problem with psychosocial interventions. Someone does a project, it's a nice project with nice results, but it's very difficult to disseminate it throughout the country when it is evidence-based. So you really have to do something to accomplish that. And we use all kind of methods, evaluation of the cost effectiveness, user evaluation, evaluation of the implementation process, and dissemination plan. Country specific, but also European-wide. Here you can see some acknowledgements of the Meeting Them project, because it's a European project in the sense that it is a project which is paid by the countries who are in a consortium. It's called GP&D. So it's not really money from the European Commission, it's money from the different countries who collaborate in this GP&D network. This is what I wanted to tell. I don't know if you have any questions, but please tell me and I try to respond to it. Thank you very much.